Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de life lessons that I learned from my folks that they either explicitly or implicitly taught me. I know parents are always trying to influence their kids, but I didn't realize until I've gotten older how much more meaningful those life lessons really felt, until I too have had some more life experiences, to be honest. So I want to share some good ones. Yeah, Zampak here. So obviously, as an early retiree, I too often lament at the general state of the American personal fiscal situation, right? If you read the mainstream media on personal finance, it would appear that basically nobody can afford anything because they buy too many avocado toasts or whatever. Certainly not houses or engagement rings. Apparently nobody has any money. And sometimes I do laugh at this, just because I know that's just a bunch of bull. Because at this point in my life, I have all the things that I've ever wanted or could possibly want already. So I know it's possible. And yet, I also realize that I have had some tremendous advantages growing up in the form of having my two parents, right? The fact that they're still together, that they work hard and all that, and also the fact that I'm an only child, right, meant that I've always been luckier than most. And while I may certainly butt heads with them often enough, and I gotta give them some credit where it's due. So today I want to ruminate over a few key lessons that they've taught me, either with words or with actions of how they've lived their lives. So come and like and subscribe on all that social media, buzzwords, blah blah, I don't really care. But you know, you can do all that stuff if you want to be nice to me, right? Point number one, my mom's motto in life is probably the word perseverance, the word to persevere, right? Seriously, she really drove this word into my brain since as long as I could remember words, okay? I heard its virtue so much that I actually really resented it as a kid, right? I mean, if she said it for the umpteenth time, I would reflexively roll my eyes. Distinctly remember myself doing that, by the way, as a kid, way before I'd call myself a cynic. Maybe I was always a cynic at heart, right? Anyway, but times change, and I've changed, and I've realized much later in life, especially when I was beginning my regular corporate work career, how important the idea of perseverance really is, right? This is because I didn't really have a great start to my working career, didn't even have a white-collar job at that time, as someone would expect of a nerdy kid like me, right? But I guess this lesson did sink in through after all, because I mean, probably because my mom said it a million times before I ever became an adult, right? But I was never ever deterred when my job didn't yet fit my ability, right? I was able to just keep trudging onwards and slowly make progress. After all, who cares what someone's first job out of college is, as long as the next one's better, and the next one better again, right? What I found is that I did inherit the spirit of perseverance, because I did end up at a fantastic giant tech company that made my early retirement possible. Heck, the result is all that should matter, right? Point number two. Now, on the opposite of being explicitly taught, my folks has expressed surprise that I have never mismanaged my money. Actually, I told them this is because I observed how they really hated the idea of debt all their lives. They've never given me a speech on any money subject at all, right? Like how to balance a checkbook or anything about credit cards or anything like that. But, I mean, I know it's a truism that kids hear and see a lot more than we give them credit for, and I feel like that's definitely true in my case, right? I heard my parents talking to each other and what their attitude towards debt was like, right? They always felt like owing people money is a burden that's best to be lifted as soon as possible. Hell, I probably took this idea to the extreme, right? Bad example, for example, I closed a credit card account that I wasn't using even though I was never in debt for that card, and in retrospect probably should have kept just for credit score purposes. But obviously most of the effects of being morally opposed to debt is positive, right? Basically, I think my parents somehow was the prototypical kind of Dave Ramseyans before that guy ever started yapping about personal finance, right? Having no debt outside of a mortgage, of course, definitely helped me gain a very solid footing to build from. I mean, I might not have had much money in the first handful of years of my career, but I was always slowly building a cushion, you know, to counter the possible case of job loss or other such extraneous circumstances, right? I have never ever dared to live paycheck to paycheck, because to me, a financial cushion, that is the opposite of having debt, right? And I wanted more of that because that's all I've ever observed my parents act and do in their lives. Now, finally, point number 3. This last bit of life lesson can feel like a bit of a double-edged sword, right? I'm talking about how my parents never really gave me much compliments when I was growing up. So when you grow up in a household like this, that's my normal, right? It doesn't really feel different because I didn't know any different, right? Then I recall during my initial college years where I met kids from more of a diverse set of backgrounds, and recall being amazed at how much patting in the back real American suburban kids would get from their folks. And I recall feeling a tinge of jealousy, right? I was like, wow, my folks never congratulated me just for, graduating high school or, passing my first semester. Heck, they didn't graduate me for getting into a top 20 college even, or for anything that I can remotely recall. That sucks. I mean, it does suck, right? It'd be nice to hear some compliments, maybe a lot more than a little bit. Yeah, that's what I thought at the time. But once again, over time, my understanding of this parental style has shifted. Now I want to talk about why I think a lack of compliments can actually build character in a way that's useful, right? And the fact of the matter is, not getting compliments just made me feel like that I could always still do better. And guess what? That's totally true. I can almost always do better in school and in life. More than I personally would have believed at any given time, right? Sometimes I compare myself to my peers who seems happy to stay at a single company, and I realized that for me, I was always really trying to do more and more, maybe in search of a compliment from the folks. Maybe that's what a cynic would say, right? But I think it's more of a challenge to myself because I didn't have the mental cushion of a attaboy to fall back on. Now, in conclusion, to be honest, it's almost a little surreal to write this kind of composition because it feels like almost like a compliment to my folks, doesn't it? I think they were raised in a household similar to my own, or really it's the other way around because how they were raised influenced how they raised me, obviously. So I can kind of imagine how unusual it'd be for them to hear me giving them some props. That is, if I think that they knew about my channel, which I'm pretty sure they don't, so it's all good. How about you guys? What life lessons or life histories, is endued in your life that's made it better or worse? I mean, I wanted to share these also to remind people that not all lessons can be learned on the day it's taught. I know mine's only been slowly absorbed over the decades. Now, cheers. I'll approach it.